Hello students, today's agenda is welcome, rules and expectations, inequalities, and you will be able to work on page 1 and page 2. So, welcome to module L, and you can review the rules and expectations with your teacher, and we're going to be learning about inequalities. So it says students will be able to solve and graph inequalities. Okay, so before we start, let me give you some symbols that we're going to be needing. And so the first symbol is this right here. This is less than, menor que. Okay, in the same manner, we have greater than. Okay, so mayor que, menor que. Now, when we're going to be graphing inequalities as well, so what you will need is that if it doesn't have, well, let me explain first the next symbol, which is less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Okay, so less than or equal to, it means menor que o igual que. Okay, menor o igual que, mayor o igual que. Now, when would we use these type of symbols is when you're saying, for example, I need to eat less than 4 tortillas per meal. Okay, menos de 4 tortillas. So I need to eat more than 5 fruits and vegetables. Okay, necesito comer más de 5 vegetales. It doesn't include the number. So if you say more than 5, it does not include 5. It means that you need to eat 6 or 7, 8, 9, etc. With the equal sign, if you say, I'm going to eat less than 4 tortillas, for example, less or equal to, it means that I'm going to eat that amount or less. So it includes the 4. In here, it does not include 4. It has to be 3, 2, or 1. Okay? So aquí no incluye el número, aquí sí lo incluye. Greater or equal to, the same thing. It means that I can eat, if I put x is greater or equal than 5, it means I'm going to eat 5 or more. So it includes the 5 because it has the equal sign. Other words to refer to this second symbol is at most. Okay, at most it means less or equal than, or the limit. Okay, the limit is that, so it means less than that. And another word or two other phrases for greater than or equal to is at least. At least means por lo menos. Let me write those in here. Por lo menos. The minimum, lo mínimo. So it means that you want more, right? Lo mínimo. So that's why it's greater or equal to. The limit is el límite. Límite. So it means that's the limit, you want less than that. Okay? And at most is lo máximo. Lo máximo que te voy a dar por el carro es. Okay? So lo máximo. I'm not going to pay more than that. Okay? So one other thing is, and that's what I wanted to come back to, is that when you don't have the equal sign, in the graph, you're going to have an open circle. And if you get confused once we start graphing, you can come back to this. Open circle, it means I don't fill it up because I don't have the equal sign. It does not include the number. So for less than or greater than, it's open circle. When you have the equal sign, in the graph, you're going to close the circle. So if it has this equal sign, close the circle. Because this has the equal sign, close the circle. Okay, it means including that number. Incluimos ese número, por eso cerramos el círculo. Okay, so before we go on to solving and graphing inequalities, we need one more piece of information. Okay, so you might want to pause the video and copy this in your notes. Or maybe you want to watch the whole video and then come back to it to make the notes. It's up to you. Okay, so we know, right? We know that number 8 is smaller than number 50. So some people say like, oh, how do I remember what symbol is less than or greater? I say, oh, just choose two numbers. The smaller number is going to have one dot. The bigger number is going to be with two dots. And just connect the dots. Okay, that's a way to remember. So you can even choose 2 and 1. 2 is bigger, so it gets 2 dots. The 1 is smaller, so it gets 1 dot. So I say that 2 is greater than 1. Oh, that's going to help me remember. I know some people say, oh, the symbol is the bigger number also. Nom, 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 nom. Okay, so in here the 50 is bigger. Nom, 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 nom. So it opens towards the bigger number. So that's another relationship that you can use. Okay, so I want you to take these as the main numbers. We know that 8 is less than 50. It's smaller than 50. So, but what if you add 5 to both numbers? Okay, let me add 5 to both numbers. So 8 plus 5 is 13. Okay, you're adding, right? You're adding 5. 50 plus 5 is 55. So which number is bigger? Well, 55 is bigger. So that means that 13 is less than 55. The symbol stayed the same. Now, what if I, again, take these numbers into consideration and I subtract 4? Okay, I'm going to subtract 4 to the two numbers. So 8 minus 4 is 4. 50 minus 4 is 46. Which one is greater? This number is greater. Okay. Now, what if I multiply by 2? Well, 8 times 2 is 16. 50 times 2 is 100. Still, this number is greater. Now, what if I multiply by negative 2? Okay, what if I multiply by negative 2? 8 times negative 2, positive times negative is negative. 8 times 2 is 16. And then positive times negative is negative. And 50 times 2 is 100. So in here, what happens? Remember that in negative numbers, the farther, if you have two negative numbers, the one that is farther away from 0 is smaller. So el que está más lejos del 0, si son dos negativos, el que está más lejos de 0 es más pequeño el número. Or the one to the left, el que está más a la izquierda es más pequeño también. So now we say that this is smaller and this is greater. What happened to the symbol right here? It's not less than, less than, less than. Now it's greater than. So when you multiply by a negative number, and it can be any number, but it's negative, then the symbol switches. Okay, se va a cambiar el símbolo cuando estamos multiplicando por un negativo. Now, what if you divide by 2? Okay, we divide by regular 2, positive 2. Okay, 8 divided by 2 is 4. 100 divided by 2 is 25. this is bigger. So if we compare it to the original, it doesn't change, okay? When it's positive in multiplication and division, it does not change. It's the same as the original. But now, what happens if we divide by -2? Okay, 8 divided by -2, positive divided by negative is negative. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. Positive divided by negative is negative. And 50 divided by 2 is 25. Again, 25, -25 is farther away than -4, so that's smaller, right? So again, this is bigger. It's like saying one person owes $4, una persona debe $4, another person owes $25. Who has more? Well, the person with less debt. La persona con menos deuda es la que tiene más. So that's greater, and this is smaller. Okay, smaller. So again, look at what happens when you divide by a negative number. Then the symbol it was less than, now it becomes greater than. Okay, so anytime you multiply or divide by a negative number, the symbol is going to switch. Okay, that's something that you need. When we multiply or divide by a negative, the inequality symbol switches. Okay. Cuando multiplicamos, muy importante, multiplicamos y dividimos. Y el número tiene que ser negativo. So the number has to be negative. Then the inequality symbol changes. If it's less than, it becomes greater than. If it's greater than, it becomes less than. Okay? Only when we multiply and divide, and the number has to be negative. It does not happen if it's positive. No pasa si es positivo, okay? Solo si los dos son, si el coeficiente es negativo. Okay, I think we're ready. With this background, we are ready to start solving some inequalities and graphing them. Okay, so let's focus on this one only. So here we have 0 is less or equal than 2n minus 3 plus 11. So what we're going to do first is combine like terms. And so you're applying skills from Module K, so all of this is going to be familiar. It's just those little extra information that we learned right now. Combine like terms. So we're going to solve this as if it was an equation. So we notice that this has 2n, okay? The division is going to be here. And so these are like terms because these don't have n. Remember that we don't put constant numbers with variable terms. So now we're going to have, we bring this down. 0 is less or equal to 2n. If I have -3 plus 11, is like saying I owe $3, I pay 11, so I end up with 8. Okay. Números iguales se suman, signos iguales se suman, signos diferentes se restan y se queda el signo del mayor. Okay, so in here we're going to subtract 8. I think I'm going to leave that one instead, sorry. I'm going to subtract 2n over here. And you can do it either way, it's just that it gets tricky with the graphing. Okay, so this cancels, and I'm going to end up with -2n. And in here, this canceled, this doesn't count, okay? And then you just bring down the 8 and the symbol stays the same. We didn't divide or multiply by a negative, so it stays the same. In here, this is multiplication. The opposite is to divide by -2. Divide by -2. So notice how in division we keep the same sign. And so -2 divided by -2 is 1. That's why it cancels. So 1n, but we don't put the 1. Now remember that when we divide by a negative, what happens to the symbol? It switches. It's not less than. Now it's going to be greater or equal than. Okay? Greater or equal than. And positive divided by negative is negative. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, so that's the solution for the first inequality. And remember, the only reason for which we switch the symbol is because the coefficient of the variable is negative. Okay, so now we're going to do the graph. We're going to have in here, we're going to put the 0. We need up to -4, so -1, -2, -3, -4, and that's where we put our circle. That's where we put our circle. Now, how do we know if it's going to be open or closed? Well, if it has this line, I said, oh, think of this as a pencil, un lapicito. And if you have the pencil, then that pencil will fill up the circle. El lapicito cierra el círculo, ¿verdad? You use the pencil to close it. If you don't have that, then you don't close it. And then it says that n is greater than -4. When the variable has 2 dots, that means that that's greater. Remember, it is the greater. And greater numbers go towards the right. Okay? Again, if it is the variable, that means that it's greater. Greater goes to the right. To the right. Okay. Now, if it had been less, then it would have gone to the left, because the left are the smaller numbers. Okay, let's go with another example. If you need to review it, make sure you rewind or maybe look at the next examples. Hopefully more things clear up, and then you can come back again. Okay, so for the next example, you have a parenthesis, and in the previous level you have learned that for this one you will need distributive property. Okay, so 3 times m is 3m. 3 times -1 is -3. Bring down the same symbol. Remember that this is our division. And 6 plus 12 is 18. If you're subtracting 3, the opposite is to add 3 to both sides. Okay, so in here, I didn't put the steps in here, and I don't know if I'm going to have enough for the graph. Okay, so in here, we're canceling by adding. Okay, and this cancels because if I owe 3 and add 3, that becomes 0. So -3 plus 3 is 0. That's why it disappears. And you bring down the 3m. Bring down the greater than. 18 plus 3, 21. This is multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. And so 3 divided by 3 is 1m, but we don't put the 1. Now in here, we're dividing, but this time we're dividing by a positive. Okay, we're not going to switch it because it's not a negative coefficient. The number next to the variable is not negative, so the symbol is going to stay the same. Okay, in here it was negative, so that's why this was less, now it's greater. In here, it's positive, so going to be greater and continues to be greater. Positive divided by positive is positive. 21 divided by 3 is 7. Okay, so in here we canceled. We're canceling by division. Okay, so for the graph, I'm going to put it on this side now. I need up to 7. Some people ask, do I need to write every single number? And I say, well, it all depends on your teacher. Sorry about that, I'm missing a little more. And so that number tells me where to place my circle. So I'm going to put the circle right on 7. Now, I'm sorry because of the big mess I made in there. I don't have the pencil in here. I don't fill up or I don't close the circle. It's an open circle. Okay, so this is open circle. Sorry about that. You can see that it's not filled up right there. Now in here, again, the arrow refers to the variable. So the variable is greater. Okay, if it has 2 dots, it means greater. Greater are to the right again. Okay, to the right. Again, if it was less than, then it would have gone to the left. And sorry again, this is an open circle. Okay, open circle. Okay, let's do one more example. Actually, a couple more. And let's see if I have enough space. If not, then I'll go ahead and add some more. So in here, you can see, well, the division is right here. And you can combine several numbers. What I do is usually use different shapes for different ones. So in here, I can see that both of these are like terms. So I'm going to combine 5p and negative 3p. And in here, I have the 2 and the negative 10. So I'm going to use clouds for that one. So I'm going to combine the positive 2 with the negative 10. Okay, so different signs we subtract and leave the sign of the greater one. Okay, so 5 minus 3 is 2. And the greater sign is positive, so it's going to be positive. I'm going to bring down the inequality symbol. And then I have p by itself. Different signs subtract and leave the sign of the greater one. So 10 minus 2. I always get the bigger one and subtract the smaller one. So it's going to be 10 minus 2 is 8. And the greater sign is negative. So I'm going to put minus in here. That's combine like terms. Combine or combining like terms. Then what I'm going to do is to cancel by adding. So I'm going to add, no, I'm going to subtract p. You're going to be like, what is she doing? Okay, I noticed that I have variables in here and variables in here. So I want to bring the variables together. Okay, that's why I'm canceling p and not 8. Okay, anytime that you have variables on both sides, cuando tenemos variables en los dos lados, siempre quiero cancelar, pero es con resta o suma de todo el término. So minus p, so that I can get rid of this p on this side, and I end up with, careful, some people get rid of this minus. This minus belongs to the 8, so it's going to be negative 8. We did not divide or multiply, so it's going to stay the same. And 2p minus p just ends up being p. Okay, 2p menos p queda una p. But we don't need the 1. Remember that when the coefficient is 1, we don't need it. Okay, now we're ready to graph. And I'm going to draw the graph in here again. And I need up to negative 8. So some teachers allow you to put 0 and then just the negative 8. You can ask your teacher. Some other teachers prefer for you to do every single one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Whoops. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7. Okay, so this tells me where to drop my circle at negative 8. This tells me, because I have a pencil, that means I close my circle. And if it hits the P, go to the right. Okay, if the P or the variable is greater, go to the right. Okay, and I have 2 more examples for you, but so pause the video if you want to make notes of this. Oh, let me just write in here that we cancel, it's called variable terms. Es cuando cancelamos, si tenemos variables en los dos lados, cancelamos todo el término. Si tuviéramos aquí 2p, restaríamos 2p. Si tuviéramos 5p, restaríamos 5p. So you're taking the whole variable term. Estamos llevando todo el término de ese, ¿ok? Y es porque tenemos variables en los dos lados. Okay, so let me give you this other one. They're getting a little bit bigger. Okay, the first thing that we're gonna do is, and you're probably really good at it because you practiced a lot in the previous module, combine like terms. And so again, I have negative 3x. I'm looking for other variables, other variable terms. So we have also negative 2x. And this one is also x, but it's not on the same side. So we cannot combine those. On this side, we have 5 and positive 16. Okay, so those are like terms. Notice how I'm using different little symbols. Okay. Negative 3 and negative 2x, same sign, we add. Okay, so negative 3, negative 2, and keep the greater sign. So it's going to be negative 5x plus 5 is greater than, I'm going to put the variable term first, but it doesn't really matter, 3x, and combine these two. 5 plus 16 is 21. Okay, now when we have variables on both sides, if you get confused, it doesn't matter if you cancel the variable first and then the constant, but if you get confused, you're the type of person that like, wow, what do I do? Which one do I get rid of first? Because you have 4 terms that you can work with. So I recommend that you work with the variables. Every time you see variables on both sides, cancel the variable term from this side over here. So if I'm adding 3x, the opposite is to subtract 3x. Okay, so this is called canceling variable terms. Cancel, variable terms. Okay, that's when we have variables on both sides. And this cancels. Now again, same sign, add, it's 8x, 5 plus 3 is 8, and keep the sign of the greater sign. Okay, in addition and subtraction, always keep the sign of the bigger number. We bring down the 5, we bring down the greater than, this cancel, so we only have 21. Okay, now this looks more like the simple ones that we work with. When you have variable on one side, then you just start canceling the addition and subtraction first, and multiplication and division last. So in here, we're going to cancel by subtracting. Minus 5, cancel. Negative 8x is greater than we're just subtracting, so we don't change. And so this is going to be 21 minus 5 is 16. Finally, we're going to cancel by dividing. And so if we're multiplying, we divide by, remember that in division we keep the same sign, okay? And what do we remember? That if the coefficient is negative, then this is gonna switch. So now it's gonna be less than, okay? And this cancels. I have x is less than, positive divided by negative is negative, 16 divided by 8 is 2, and we graph, so we get 0, negative 1, negative 2. The negative 2 tells me where to drop my circle. No pencil, no filling, okay? No hay lápiz, no llenamos el círculo. And now the x is less than. So the lesser numbers are always to the left. Okay, los números más pequeños o menores son a la izquierda. So x is less than, go to the left. Okay, last example. Actually, if you feel ready, you can go ahead and start working. You can just skip the last one. But if you need one more, then go ahead and see it. So again, distributive property, I'm not going to write the description since you already have practice with that. So 5 times 2x is 10x. 5 times negative 3, positive times negative is negative. 5 times 3 is 15. Plus 3 is less or equal than. In here, we can combine like terms. So notice how we are actually practicing both distributive property and combine like terms at the same time. If we have a negative and a positive, we subtract and leave the sign of the bigger one. So 7 minus 3 is 4x. Bring down the 12. We now can combine these two because they are constant, números constantes. So 10x, negative 15, positive 3, subtract and leave the sign of the bigger one. So 15 minus 3 is 12, and the bigger number is negative, so negative 12 is less or equal than 4x plus 12. Remember that when we have variable, constant, for those people that get confused, it's easier to put the variables together. So if I'm adding 4x, it cancels subtracting. Okay, 10x minus 4x is 6x. Bring down the rest. Then I can start canceling whatever is adding and subtracting first, and then dividing. So if I'm subtracting 12, the opposite is to add 12. This cancels, and I'm going to end up with 6x is less or equal than 24. And so finally, we're going to, if we're multiplying, the opposite is to divide. Notice how in here, remember, we keep the same sign in division and multiplication, but notice how we're not dividing by a negative. So this symbol stays the same. Only if this was negative, then it would change, okay? But in here, 24 divided by 6, it's 4, so we keep it the same. And I'm just going to do the graphing here. So you can just put 0 and 4. The 4 is where you put the circle. This tells me that I close the circle. Okay, whenever you have the equal sign, you close the circle. And less than, right? X is less than is to the left. Okay, X less than, then left. Okay, this is kind of a long video, but notice that it's for 2 pages. So that's why I think you can watch it and then be able to work for 2 days. So have fun working on 1 and 2.